Soft, melancholic music is played. A suburban residence with a warm summer evening setting is depicted as the screen fades in. I would like to caution you that this narrative contains mature themes prior to commencing. It addresses the difficulties associated with infidelity in family relationships during new motherhood. If these subjects cause you discomfort, it may be beneficial to discontinue viewing immediately. At first, I did not pay much attention to this narrative. It began with innocuous glimpses, or so I believed. However, those glimpses persisted, and they became increasingly difficult to disregard as time progressed. The protagonist's existence, her empty bed, her son's lingering glances, and her increasing unease. He would gaze at me as if I were not his mother. He would perceive me as something else, as if I were someone else. For an extended period, I feigned to be unaware. What was I expected to think? He is my firstborn. My firstborn. The concept appeared preposterous and ridiculous, however it persisted in my mind. It pursued me in every chamber of this residence. I began to notice his gaze on me as I passed by. He would briefly glance away if I turned to him. It was almost as though he desired me to be aware that he was watching. Transitions to the protagonist contemplating her marriage and feeling isolated. My life has not been particularly straightforward. After 15 years, my marriage had deteriorated and ultimately disintegrated. I devoted the majority of my time to maintaining our unity, striving to fulfill all of his needs and desires. For a period of time, I believed that I was sufficient. Nevertheless, the distance commenced. Initially, it was minor matters, no goodnight greeting. No, how was your day? Then the silence descended, that unbearable silence that envelopes a room and bears down on your chest until you feel as though you are unable to breathe. Even as if we had both surrendered, we ceased to engage in violent conflict. By the conclusion, we were strangers who resided in the same residence. As the protagonist's son, Ethan, returns home, his demeanor has undergone a significant transformation. By that time, Ethan had already departed for college. He was my sole offspring, my infant. I primarily reared him independently. Ryan, my ex-husband, was consistently more preoccupied with his professional obligations than with us. However, Ethan was my universe. I was aware that my existence would never again revolve around me the moment I held him. It would be about him, his requirements, and his happiness. And when he departed for college, I thought, this is it. I fulfilled my obligations. He is departing to commence his existence. However, he returned to his residence a few months ago. Montage of the protagonist's increasing tension, awkward moments, and lingering gaze between Ethan and the protagonist. He did not provide me with a great deal of information. He merely mentioned that college was not working out for him, and that he needed some time to address the situation. He was not compelled by me. I anticipated that he would speak when he was prepared. That's the thing about Ethan, he has always been so subdued and introspective. He continues to suppress all emotions until he is unable to do so. I was under the impression that I was acquainted with him. I believed that I comprehended him. However, upon his return, he experienced a distinct sensation. I did not send the same child to college. There was a menacing quality to him. He appeared to be agitated and frustrated, as if he was carrying a burden that he was unable to release. The protagonist confronts Ethan, and an emotive confession is made. I should have ceased it at that time. I should have spoken up and established a boundary. However, I refrained from doing so. Additionally, I am unaware of the reason. It is possible that I was feeling regretful. He had just lost everything: his future, his confidence. He was in the process of determining his identity, and I did not wish to exacerbate his difficulties. Perhaps it was due to the fact that I enjoyed the sensation it evoked in my subconscious. After years of feeling invisible, as though I was nothing more than a shadow in my own life, someone eventually recognized me. And it was not just anyone. He was the individual in question. The protagonist and Ethan engage in an illicit moment. the moment of transition. The events of that evening continued to torment me. When I arrived home, it was nearly midnight. I was drained from the lengthy duration of my duty. My head was pounding, my feet were aching, and all I wanted to do was climb into bed and forget the day. Upon entering the residence, I was struck by the darkness, which seemed to be more oppressive than usual. The silence that I was accustomed to was not as comfortable. No, it was distinct. The air was unbalanced, as if there was an issue. I placed my keys on the counter and made my way to my room, scarcely conscious. However, as I approached, I detected an audible sound. The sound was faint, soft, and rhythmic, although it was not particularly strong. The emotional confrontation that ensues when the protagonist discovers Ethan in her chamber. I was paralyzed. Initially, I considered the possibility that I had left a window open, causing the curtains to be brushed by the breeze. However, that was not the case. No, this sound was distinct. It emanated from within my bedroom. My heart began to beat rapidly. I could hear my body screaming at me to turn around and depart, to refrain from opening that door. However, I was unable to restrain myself. I will never forget the sight I encountered when I opened it. The protagonist and Ethan are both reclining down. The aftermath. I entered the room and sat on the edge of his bed, ensuring that there was an appropriate amount of space between us to prevent the atmosphere from becoming too close. Initially, neither of us engaged in conversation. The silence weighed heavily on us, and we were unable to escape. We simply sat in the darkness. I finally murmured, "Talk to me." The volume of my voice was lower than I had intended, bordering on the level of begging. I must comprehend. He did not respond immediately. He gazed at the floor for an extended period, his hands clenched into fists as if he were attempting to maintain his composure. Eventually, he stated, "I am unsure of the cause of my condition." His voice was trembling. "I am aware that it is a disaster. I am aware that it is incorrect. However, I am unable to cease contemplating you." The protagonist is depicted standing alone in the garden, contemplating the disorder. I was uncertain as to what to say. What is there for me to say? I desired to inform him that he was mistaken, that he should cease, and that this behavior was abnormal. However, the words would not emerge, as the truth was that I did not wish for him to cease. And acknowledging that, even to myself, made me feel like the most despicable person in the world. We conversed, or perhaps we did not. It is possible that the duration was only a few minutes. I genuinely cannot recall. I recall the manner in which he gazed at me as if I were the sole individual in the universe. Additionally, I harbored feelings of self-hatred toward myself due to the sensations it evoked and the desire to remain, despite my awareness that I should have departed. The story's just beginning. There are more broken hearts and dark secrets ahead. Hit like, subscribe, and keep exploring with Love Missteps.